If you watched the YouTube video that I had going earlier, cycled it twice, you saw toroidal vortexes, and with that you should have inferred that now you know what a horizontal gust is. But I have another YouTube video at the end of the presentation. We'll show that during the break or something. Okay, so my tack here today is, imagine that we want to accomplish the silver distance flight, the gold distance flight, your diamond goal. These are big flights to us and we all want to achieve it. Whether we need to make that flight more than once, doesn't matter. But personally, it means a lot to every one of us. All of us have done it or are striving to do so. So, I want you to think of yourself this way. A prominent 126 pilot in our community once said, thermals are everywhere on a soarable day. And he would know he's done over 300 gold distance flights, many from our home state. One of our own pilots flew this diamond gold FAI triangle a couple years ago, Stanton, Austin, Blue Earth, Stanton, in the 35-to-1 glider. Course distance 316 kilometers, duration 6 hours, he had 50 thermals en route. Straight distance 400 kilometers, he had 51 glides, only 7.8 kilometers on a glide, mean L over D in 41-to-1. That's in a 35-to-1 manufactured published glider. But the point is, en route on a strong day, he had 50 thermals. And most of my presentation for most of the rest of the presentation is about making these great flights that we want to achieve on strong days. And of course, scientific notation, we can show that CU gets it right. We got 316 divided by 50, and we get 6.3 kilometers on course per thermal.
Slide rule and knows how to use it.
Is that a genuine ticket? Or?
Post.
Post.
More stats, again. One thermal every 6.3 kilometers on course, or one thermal every 6.5 minutes. And let's dig a little bit deeper. That's about 330 circles over 5.5 hours. You guys are practiced. You're getting pretty good at this sport. So who are we? We all have an adequate understanding of the soaring weather. Attainable goals, many of us have gotten our bronze badge, some of us are working our silver badge legs, and even the gold flights and the diamond flights. We have skills well enough to thermal. We understand we want to stay high at top of our lift band. We're coming to understand lines of lift and sink. That's the big mystery to us because that's not always obvious. We don't see, we only see what's in front of us, and the thermals are often not visible. So an adequate understanding, of course, we all know Ford's website, TIs, classic, we've been working with that for over 20 years. We got the Minnesota Soaring Forecast, and lastly, the free Dr. Jack's boundary layer maps. Again, that's a free site. Many of us do some great flights just with those 3 items. And so yes, we do need badges. The bronze badge includes the 6 measurable legs for safe cross-country skills, and of course the 3 legs for the silver badge are meant to be hard but not out of reach. And again, these flights are geared towards most of us. We're not trying to be record holders of any sort. So let's look at the stats again. 2 2-hour bronze badge flights. When you thermal about 50% of the time, that's 360 circles. Okay, we got more practice. FAI silver badge duration, 40% of the time you're circling, you got another 360 circles, and by the time you're ready to go cross country, you've circled 720 times or more over 9 hours of soaring. You are ready to fly cross country. So, we've already acquired with 720 circles of practice, we recognize the thermals by seat pressure and other clues. We have a sense and time for centering with our audio variometers. We fly well-being, coordinated, steady speed circles, and of course we move over to the thermal center as needed. Guys, we've got the practice. We're good at this. We learned to stay at high. See the plentiful climbs on this bear graph? This is the one done by one of our own, his 316 kilometer diamond goal flight. Look at the thermals he found and look at the depth of his flight band. And he was up at 7,500 MSL all the time, and he never got scared. He stayed above 6,000 almost the whole time. This is doable, guys. We're learning to exceed the manufacturer's published best L over D by flying cloud to cloud. We don't have to fly 35 to 1 or 30 to 1 or 28 to 1. If we find our lines of energy, we can exceed that. I just showed it to you, 41 to 1 in a 35 to 1 glider. This is the heartbreaker right here. Before you fly, get a good estimate of the winds aloft, especially on a blue day. The speed and direction is important. So we'll pick that up during the weather briefing. Hard to center lift. To find lift without visible markers, start your new progress from the thermal you couldn't center by flying straight into the wind. You might find the stronger core as you do this. Sink before a thermal. If you're in a low performance glider, 35 to 1, 30 to 1, you're flying 28 to 1. Deviate 15 to 20 degrees before you speed up, because altitude is precious to those low performing gliders. And if you have to do both, you do both. And of course this applies to speedy gliders too. But if you're flying a super ship at 50 to 1, you know, sometimes you blow through the sink and you hardly notice it. If you got persistent sink, again it matters. Know your speed and direction of the winds aloft. So you can deviate up to 90 degrees if you're in a sink street, because you can find yourself on the ground in 2 minutes. Conditions for starting, and this is a real common question for a lot of first-time cross-country pilots. What's a starting height? I would argue that, 5,000 MSL is pretty common amongst most of us.
Do you mean start height here or cloud-based height?
Start height.
Start height, okay.
If you find several good climbs before you start and the weather appears to be nearly the same for the afternoon, then you will more than likely find climbs while progressing towards your goal. And of course, as the afternoon warms, the climbs will become stronger and higher. You have everything going for you. You got the height to start with, and you know the skies are going to get better through the day. And of course, we're all nervous about this our first few times, but charge on. The rest of us have managed. Conclusions. Smart pilots wrote a plan for us, those who preceded us. It was called the Badge Program. We have a good understanding of weather, centering, thermals, lines of lift and sink. And there's a common knowledge. This is why we talk to each other. Hangar talk. Passing that skills, gaining the confidence to leave the airport. But we're not done. So let's get better. That's why we're at the camp. So during our weather briefing, I hope that you come to appreciate a better understanding of the weather. I'm going to challenge you to think about how your variometer is set up, how you can change that to help you center the thermal. Most of us fly the 270 method to center our thermals. There are other methods like the surge method. Running between stronger thermals, a deeper lift band, a better thermal exit, and rejecting weak thermals. So here we go, a better understanding of the weathers. I like to go to the surface maps, see where the highs are, see where the lows are, where the fronts are. I like this meteogram because that tells me the temperature profile aloft. And of course, you all know that I'm a fan of the wrapped soundings, whether it's the radio sound in the morning or the projected soundings in the afternoon, because it's all free. And you get a better understanding of the details of where condensation will happen, even above the inversion. And of course, the first 4 photos I showed you was March 19th, which was a great day to fly, but I got the wrong satellite photo. But the satellite photos tell us a lot, even though we are looking out the windows. So the key questions you want to ask is, when do you start, the height of your lift band, and when to finish? If you're going to fly across country in a low-performing cross-country glider, presume that you're going to fly 35 miles per hour over the ground and you're going to have 2 knots of lift. Now you have enough information to pick a task length. And finally, start with the predicted temperature as early as you dare. You know, even though there are picnic tables over there, you don't need to wait an hour or so to eat your lunch. Go fly.
Leanne, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you talked about, I think you said 2 knots of lift, you can average about 35 miles an hour. So what about 4 knots of lift?
35 miles an hour.
About 6 knots of lift?
35.
Okay.
My point is, there are different perspectives on how to see your McCready speeds and what your flight computer is going to tell you. Well, I got to say that many of us choose to fly, have flown with flight computers that were, if I can find it, and we don't necessarily have the confidence to perform at the best level, but I flew 7 years with this flight computer.
Where are the batteries?
Right there. Again, my point, don't waste a soaring day. We've waited all temperature to get here. Go fly right away. Okay, new various settings. This is important because I've heard sides from this opinion from both sides. They're all great pilots. Some pilots like a quick response to complement their senses when they're centering their thermals. Other pilots prefer a delayed response, concentrating on their senses. So understand the various settings in your glider. Either choice requires that you learn to recognize the difference between a horizontal gust and a thermal. And so that's the skill that you need to pick up. As I said earlier, that YouTube video I started with, Dolphins 2, you saw the toroidal vortex. Now you should have a sense of what a horizontal gust is. Another method to center. All of us were taught the 270 method. Bob's thermaling book is real good on that explanation. There are other methods like the surge method. Helmut Reichmann has a good explanation for that. That's when you tighten up and open up as you need when you encounter sink and lift. I leave it to you to discover that. Running between strong thermals. Okay, so the super ships do this quite easily. That's why they're flying 51 to 1. We're flying 35 to 1, 32 to 1. So the skill you're going to acquire, run by flying through the next thermal when flying cloud to cloud. Okay, so as we get more confidence, skip the next thermal if its initial climb rate is too low. Circle once or just 90 degrees and then decide to move on. You all can do this. That doesn't require a fancy flight computer. And you've already chosen a flight band, something you're comfortable with. When you approach the bottom of the lift band, this is harder to do. Take any thermal that you can to save that flight. Climb up, progress on to a stronger thermal, and finish your climbing to the top of your flight band. A deeper lift band. So I showed this bear graph to you earlier. This is that 316 click Diamond Gold flight by one of our own. And so the top two lines, the top blue line was the top of the lift. He chose 6,000 feet as the bottom of his flight band, his lift band. But he had already shown to himself that he could fly down to 5,000 MSL and still continue the flight. So if you extend that to the rest of the flight, he didn't need to take 50 thermals in flight, en route. He could have taken fewer, thus saving time to center on every thermal, and that's what slows you down. So have a sense that you need to arrive at your goal soon enough to avoid the end of the day. Because, and some of us have been there, at the end of the thermal day you get stuck low and far from the airport. It's a challenge to get up high enough to get back. Some of us have been in that position, and we visited the fields between there and the glider port. Okay, thermal exit. If there's no conflict with other glider traffic, you're certainly entitled to leave the thermal on the opposite side, fly through the center, and progress on course. I'm not saying anything about speed because I just want you to get around your diamond goal flight, that's all. This is the real challenge, and all cross-country pilots face this. They're always challenged by rejecting the weak thermal. If you're high enough, press on. Don't get caught short of time. That's huge. Okay, another example of rejecting weak thermals. And this is again this is again the data from CU, the 316 kilometer flight. Consider this, do you really have time to take every thermal when you're high and happy? Of course, when the data is strong. But look, this pilot rejected 18 thermals. So he didn't fly just 50 thermals, he flew 68 thermals.
He gained 1,500 feet in the rejections.
Okay, so
It wasn't waste, but it was.
So consider this. You see tries less than 45 seconds. You can redefine that. Make it 20 seconds, 10 seconds. CU lets you do that. But the point is here, you don't need to take the weak thermals. If you think after one turn or two turns, move on, because you don't want to spend time centering that thermal. It holds you back. It may keep you from finishing this great flight you've always dreamed about.
This guy really likes left turns.
He's not here, so we can't tell him that. Okay, conclusion. Fly often. Fly on blue days like today. Weekdays like Bob suggested. And I'll tell you, learn to fly low days, because here in Minnesota we don't do that. Hang with your peers.
Oh, can you go back?
I'll do that. Hang with your peers. Hang or talk at the end of the day. Hear what they have to say. And of course, this is kind of me. Pursue excellence as described. And all this leads to improved skills. We're safer pilots. Okay, now I got to do this. And lastly, credit to the title. It's coming. There we go. All right, I'm going to start this, and then any questions? It's Dick's turn.
I didn't get the connection with the book, Pursuit of Excellence. What's the connection?
That's my personal attitude towards flying.
Was the book helpful? Are you recommending the book, I guess is what I'm trying to discuss.
It's just who I am. This is who I choose to be.
See, now, I think that was a yes or no question. Are you recommending the book?
You didn't.
Or no?
Your second question was yes or no.
Okay, I think I've had my two. Thank you.
Your time has expired.
Okay, so this is cool, but it's Dick's turn now. Again, this is a Toyota Vortex, but only as you see it in the swimming pool.
Spell that word. A what vortex?
This is the same vortex that I showed to you earlier with the dolphins flick, but this is just half of it. These are our thermals.
When you said today's a blue day over the entire southern Minnesota?
I'm sorry.
You said today would be a blue day over entire southern Minnesota, you think?
We'll see. It seems to be that.
And based on what data?
We'll do the weather later.
All right.
So I have a question about wind direction and the direction you want to go. You said, pass up the weak thermals. And I guess if you're finding strong thermals, peachy. But do you make a decision if the wind is blowing you in the direction you want to go anyway? Do you consider that as to whether?
If you're trying to find a thermal and you think you've found parts of it but you can't center it, it's a common practice to fly into the wind, hoping that you find that stronger core, or if you fly downwind to find the core, less likely, but it takes you further off course with a tailwind.
But if the tailwind is on course, I mean,
Well, then you're golden. Just like the flight that was on Dick's computer here. They flew into the wind on the way out and flew back with the wind.
Thank you, Leon.